You said a lot, and you also mentioned that you felt that in some terms, that more was going on here in terms of dealing with or debating the issues or combating the issues of racism, sexism, the whole post-colonial thing.
Mm-hmm.
My next question has to do with in your opinion, what would you say are some of the commonalities? What are some of the differences that you see between the Black German community and perhaps the African American community within your working sphere? I mean, we cannot compare the communities with the entire United States or the community that you met here in Berlin with the rest of Germany. But for example, where you're living in Colorado Springs or areas where you lived most of your life or had contact or were active or were teaching or doing research, what are some of the commonalities that really stand out in your mind? And maybe you want to mention also one or two stark differences.
Mm-hmm. I hope I don't. If I deviate too far from the question, I don't think I will, but I'm worried about that. Reel me back in, but
okay,
please. But one of the things that I want to say carefully and gently is that I think due to the fact that, for instance, if I could just focus on Black women for a moment, self-identified. I think due to, I was telling someone there, when I teach Black feminist theory, of course I don't only teach writing that is written by self-identified feminists. So you go back to the 1800s, you know what I mean, and teach, Frances Harper, and I could just go back to enslaved Black women's narratives. There is none of that. In Germany. And so, for instance, Ika's book, which I think is at my house now, but what is that written, 1980, 90 something?
It was in the mid-90s or early 90s, I believe. Mid-90s, yeah.
Mid-90s, and that and Farber Buchanan is almost the beginning of the Black woman's narrative being written, read, and shared in, larger spaces. And so a lot of the conversations, not a lot, some of the conversations that I not just participated in, but just listened to, sounded a lot like U.S. Black feminist conversations from the 80s.
Can you name an example?
For instance, like, what it means to be a Black woman. I almost think we here in the States need to maybe revisit that a little bit, because I think we've taken for granted that we know what that means. You know what I mean now? Because of course, Berlin had Audre Lorde too, right? We had Audre Lorde, everybody. And just the fact that it means so much, like Daima of the Witness series, like how much it means for people in Germany to have a book with the faces of Black women in it and the narrative of Black women in it is just like, wow. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, and I'm excited because it's happening. It's already happening. Now, the other thing is that I felt like, and I'm not, I think that the conversations around post-colonialism that are happening in Berlin are like gone out of here. Like I was just mind blown, thinking it's almost like some organizations I noticed were really interested in having a conversation about post-colonialism, and some were really interested in having a conversation about Black. And I don't know if the two are intermingling or as interconnected as they either want to be or need to be. I don't know. But it seemed like there was either a focus on Black or either a focus on post-colonialism, transnationalism. And I see that here too. Like
Okay.
I said, you know what I mean? Like I said, in Black intellectual circles, people asked why Berlin. So if they're asking why Berlin, they can't be familiar with Audre Lorde's legacy there or Du Bois's, because anybody who did was like, oh, of course you're going to Berlin. Like, of course Heidi is going to Berlin. So, you know, so I see that too, where there's a particular set of names of people who move in Black, in intellectual circles that are focused on Black, and there's a different set of names for people in the States who move in intellectual circles that are focused on post-colonialism and transnational thinking. A couple of names overlap, but I don't see it. And so I'm saying that that's something that is similar, is that there isn't, I don't think, and if I'm wrong, somebody please send me an email and tell me all about it, because I just don't think that there's the kind of interconnectedness that we need. And people keep saying, you know, to me, well, don't you think that we need to work more with white people in order to progress racially, because, you know, they're the ones doing the oppressing? And I'm not knocking that argument per se, but I would like to try to expand our transnational thinking and networking first and try that, because I think that might be, you know, that could very well be why, you know, things are a little slower to change, because we're just not doing a good job, I don't think. Or maybe it's just me, and maybe I'm not doing a good job, and I'll own that. You know what I mean?
Just to be clear, is this a suggestion you're making from the side of the United States, or as it pertains to the side of Germany?
I think both.
For both, okay.
I think both. I think, you know, for instance, okay, you have the Ori Jalo initiative that is alive and well. They're going to do, you know, they're going back to court, I think, next month about this case. How in the hell do we not know about that? If I say Ori Jalo in the United States, no one is going to know what I'm talking about. And it isn't the same thing, but the ways in which Black folks are so concerned about police brutality, especially as it pertains to Black men, there is no reason why we shouldn't be linked up arm in arm across the world, because it's happening everywhere. You know, the police aren't just killing Black men in the United States. And you know, and it was so great. Nadine Saeed, who's a big part of the Ori Jalo initiative, she spoke with my students about the case, but then she also invited me over to their space, and we did a similar thing that you and I are doing. We were talking, and you know, it was being recorded about, and then, you know, I talked about Trayvon, and, you know, they talked about Ori Jalo, I talked about Marissa Anderson, they talked about Christy Schwandeck, you know what I mean? So that is not and I'm not tooting my own horn, but that, I think, needs to happen more on both sides.
Okay.
You know, like, there's, like, the name Ori Jalo should ring bells around the world, as should Trayvon Martin, Marissa Alexander, Christy Schwandeck. You know, why is this not? So I mean, and I'm not shaming any side. I'm just saying I think we all need to do a better job of knowing each other better.
I have to say, this whole Trayvon Martin case has been, much attention was given from the Black German community, and as far as I was able to ascertain from being part of these small little Facebook groups, where a lot of Black Germans are using Trayvon Martin's picture as their profile. So there are discussions going on. I wouldn't say that I mean, Trayvon Martin, to some degree, the case was also portrayed in the news here, in the German media also. And yes, it was portrayed in the German media here too.
No, I mean, because we talked about that, but, like, did they slant it toward how did they slant it?
Well, since I don't watch television,
no, I know. I
can't make comments about that. But I noticed on online media that I was looking at, that I saw that this whole issue was coming up with Trayvon Martin, and in terms of being slanted, I think here it was just presented as an issue, a problem in the United States. In terms of in-depth dealing with it, that I did not see. But within us, in some of the closed groups on Facebook from the Black German community, there was a lot being discussed about it. So it was an issue here, and this idea of racial profiling, which also happens here in Germany too. There are major connections there.